Welcome to another Adobe Script tutorial. In the last video, we improved a script that exports PDFs from InDesign by adding a progress bar. But the script still has problems. Watch this and see what I mean. Run the script and go straight to the OK button. Without selecting a folder or a PDF preset, the script fails, and the error message isn't very user-friendly. We'll work on that later in the video. The problem is we didn't select a PDF preset in the drop-down list, so trying to get the text property of a null selection is an error. Let's validate the options before the script does any work. To begin, I've copied the code from the last video into a new script named Adobe Script Tutorial 4. Now go to the event handler for the OK button. Before closing the window, test if a PDF preset is selected. If not, list PDF presets, selection, alert, select a PDF preset, an empty string for title, and false because this isn't really an error, just nudging the user to choose a preset. If nothing is selected in the list, the property selection is null, which equates to false. The not operator flips it to true, and the if block executes, displaying the alert. Then return without closing the window. Give it a try. That's better. Now select a PDF preset, but not a folder, and click OK. No error, but we can also nudge the user to choose a folder. Again, in the OK button handler, test if a folder is selected. I'll put this first, the same order each appear on the interface. If not, txt, folder input, text, alert, select folder to process. The property text is a string, and when a string is empty, it is falsy, meaning, if not strictly compared, it equates to false. The not operator flips it to true, and the if block executes. Again, alert the user and return without closing the window. Now both conditions must be met before the script continues. But let's try one other possibility. Select a folder that has no InDesign documents. I'll choose the Fonts folder. It's not an error, but also not accurate to say done. Nothing was done. So do this. Declare a new script variable named abort. It begins undefined, the key to how this works. Then, in the process function, after reading the folder, test if the array is empty, which is the case if no files were found. Like in the OK event handler, all it takes is the not operator. If not files length abort equals no InDesign files found in selected folder. This works because, like an empty string, 0 is falsy. If not strictly compared, 0 equates to false. Set the abort variable and return. Now, back to where we call the process function. In the alert that follows, change done to abort or done. This is a short circuit evaluation. Here's how it works. Undefined equates to false. In that case, the next expression is evaluated, which is simply the string done. But if abort is defined, it equates to true, and it becomes the string value passed to the alert method. So the user sees the text stored in the variable abort, instead of the literal text done. Okay, we've considered mistakes a user might make. Now let's handle errors not anticipated. To do this, use a try-catch when calling the process function. Try catch, and the argument E for the error object returned. Move the call to the process function and the done alert into the try block. Add to the catch block, alert, an error has occurred. New line, then line and the error line number, a colon and space, and finally, the error message. Finish with the script title, and this time, set the third argument to true, so the alert displays an error icon. Now we need an error to see how the alert looks. I'll disable the interface validation we've added to get the original error message again. In VS Code, select and Control/. This time we get a cleaner alert without the excess. Only the important details we want a user to report: the line number and the error message. Null is not an object. Go to the line in the code, and there it is. When nothing is selected in the list, the selection property is null, and you can't read the text property of a null object. I'll restore the interface validation. To test further, I'll create a fake error in the files loop. This simulates a problem with our code or other processing failure. Now run the script. Select a folder and preset and click OK. And there's the error alert. But notice the progress window is still showing. When the alert is dismissed, progress is too, but better if progress closed before the alert. And more important, the document is still open. Here's how to handle both. In the process function, I'll add another try block, but not a catch. However, I will add a finally block, the third option in the try catch finally pattern. Try is always required, but it doesn't have to include both catch and finally. It can have both or only one of them. In this case, I want errors handled in the earlier catch block, not here. So omit a catch block. But I want to clean up if an error occurs. That goes in the finally block. Move the files loop into the try block. And move progress close into the finally block. Now run the script. This time, you can see the progress window is gone, because no matter what happens, code in the finally block is always executed. However, once dismissing the error alert, the document is still open. So make another try finally inside the loop, and close the doc in the finally block. But to be safe, it should be wrapped in an if statement. If doc close, save options, no. Because the error might be when opening the file. If that fails, there is no doc to close. Now give it a go. We get the error alert, and the doc is closed. Much better. I'll remove the fake error. We're done with that. The last thing I want to do is break up the process function. This helps make the code reusable, which I'll explain after the next adjustments. This also shows an aspect of variable scope. I'll make a new function, processFile, with the single argument file. From the files loop, move the inner try finally to the new function, and in its place, call the new function. Pass to the function files I, and in the new function, change each instance of files I to file, the argument passed. Some variable declarations need to move, because where they're used has moved. Doc and file PDF, but one of them is a problem. PDF preset, because we assign a value to it in the process function, but use it in process file. This is an example of when higher scope makes things easier. Make the variable PDF preset script scope instead of exclusive to this function. Then both functions can access it. To do this, I'll move the declaration to the top of the script, to the section Script Variables. This makes the scope anywhere in the script. Then move doc and file PDF to the process file function, the only place they're used. Always be mindful of where you need variable scope. Keep it exclusive to functions whenever practical, but in some cases it's better to declare in higher scope rather than pass a long list of arguments to functions. It's all a matter of judgment. This also highlights the value of the anonymous function the script is wrapped in. It creates this idea of script scope. Think of it as global, but only to the script. This keeps us from polluting the actual JavaScript global scope. Last, why breaking up the process function makes the code reusable. This script exports PDFs, but suppose you want something else done to a folder of InDesign documents. We only have to update the process file function. Change what happens after the doc is opened and before it's closed, and you have a new script. Keep this code, because next time, that's exactly what we'll do. Subscribe so you're notified of upcoming videos. And like this one if you found it helpful. Also, leave a comment. What do you want to accomplish with Adobe Scripts? For which application? Your responses help me decide the topics to feature in future videos. Thanks for watching.